don't shut me down here. All right, welcome to UAT Game Studios. This is milestone 3 of the spring semester. Welcome, Morpheus. Conseclicker.
Hello everyone, I'm Ivan Grijalva, team lead of Conseclicker. Alright, so pretty much the designers ended up doing some more dialogue cleanup, their UI mapping, and basically going in and refining the building upgrades that will be worked on when it comes to the stat requirements for them to basically pop up. Whoops. For the artist, I know one of our artists ended up having to remake a 3D asset and also re-rig it, and along with the animation, but he's done a great job on it. And also they've been working hard on getting the buildings and the models to be import ready, which I'm really stoked for because I got in. Why did I do it again? I got in a couple of the new models into the build the other day. And for the programmers, the upgrade button got in, and there's also a good amount of code cleanup. We also were finally able to get the actual dialogue checks to work within the stat system, and we worked on connecting all the components. So I have 2 builds due to some source control snafu. This, hopefully it'll look nice. And pretty much we have the placement in set, and wow, that is tiny on this resolution. But pretty much once you're instantiating a building, it checks now the stats, and if you meet the requirement, it would actually fire the dialogue system, which took a good amount of checking for different stats and different components. And the cool thing is it changes depending on the type of building that you're doing. So if you could see, unfortunately, this is a game for ants. But each of these players are actually being, their dialogue is being shot off by us having the upgrade systems, the different upgrades. So if you look, this is the base building, we have the corrupt upgrade for it. And this is the more nature-orientated one, and it's calling upon the villager dialogue that's associated with that specific stat. And it works on with multiple levels. So if, let's say, you reach X amount with this stat, and then get another stat that sort of contradicts it, that'll help the branching path of the narrative. Basically, it shutters off the other narrative's possibilities and sets you on a path of where you constructed it. And then our next build is the buttons for upgrading the actual buildings themselves. So once you click it, once you actually are able to click on the building, you're able to choose what actual upgrade that you wanted, and it replaces where it was. And this was done through, since our upgrades are prefabs and not actual game objects themselves, you have to go through a couple of loops to actually get this to occur. Alright. Pretty much what's coming up next is, now that we have most of our pieces connected, is just getting the team rallying together and basically finish this off, because we have now most of everything in place, and we're able to create something cool. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm team lead for Morpheus.
Oh, thanks.
Oh no.
Looks good.
Alright. Cool. We're all the way to that's at the end, Todd. Alright, cool. Alright, so we're going to show off quite a bit of like design and some art we have, as well as some prototype videos. First up, we played a lot with IK manipulation. So this is inside the code. We can have the player or the model look up and down. We are using this for the bow. So when the player aims, the upper part of his body will rotate. We currently have that in the build. We also played around with holding objects. So this object that's in front of the player, his hand will try to snap to it. If I move that closer, you'll see that it goes right into his hand, and it moves quite realistically. And this is all in the code. As long as the artist sets up the IKs properly, it works great. We'll be able to use that for holding objects that you pick up in the game, obviously. So, yeah. We played around with IKs quite a bit. Videos suck on here. We also are messing around with our platforming aspect. So with this, we actually, this is on Twitter, we actually were able to get a simple model to animate and properly cliff shimmy across this gap. This doesn't use any colliders. This is all raycasts, so it's pretty nice. You just set that wall as climbable, and he'll do that. Wow, this looks fantastic. Okay, cool. We also worked on our Magball, his forlorn form. So you can see in the picture here on the concept art, we have this lightning bolt across his two, whatever you want to call those, antennas. Over here, we're using a line renderer to kind of add some noise to that. So that is pretty awesome. And that does animate and move in the game. You'll see that in our build. We also played around with his powers. Before, he would pull and push things just sporadically. Our designer told us that we need to have a more direct control, so we were able to get that in. And we'll be able to use this for puzzles, so I can pick up a metal block, plug it into a wall, and it will activate a door. Or you could do more complicated pattern stuff. You can see I'm putting it on top of this block here. It kind of just throws it off. Wow, this is really bad. Cool. We also have rebindable input. One of our programmers worked on this. So if you open up the menu, you can go in and change the different keys. And this is expandable, so as we add more button presses, you can go in and change this. We're still working on getting this to work with the gamepad. Speaking of the gamepad, we're trying to do something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing with controls. You can see here I have the gamepad plugged in, and when I unplug it, it will switch to WASD, and then it will switch back. And we'll be able to, and that's just a texture, a decal that we just slap on, so the artist, they can crank out UI assets, and we can put those in the world. Slap on a script, and it will swap it. Videos are fun. We worked on quite a bit of puzzle components. Over here you can see we have this teeter-totter. With the cockatrice you can stone things. So if I stone the left side, it will fall over. If I stone the other side, it will balance out. And if the other side's stoned, obviously it goes the other way. And this has 3 outputs. So we can have something activate when it's balanced, we can have something activate when it's down, and we can have something activate when it's the other way. On the other side you can see we have these pylons that emit light. When you shoot it behind another one, it will activate that one, and it kind of does a chain reaction. So we're going to be playing around with that as well. Our designers have been hard at work with puzzle diagrams. We're getting ready to start implementing tons of these. We're just getting all the pieces together right now, as well as the movements. Here are some more. The cloaked hallway was one that we worked on. Here's kind of its little brief description. This is actually a pitch black hallway with moving platforms. You use the wolf and candle mouse to kind of navigate your way through it. And we have a video showing that off as well. So when you go into the wolf, he can see scent. These platforms, the designer would go in, set design it, and add a bunch of flowers around the edge so it looks like there's scent emitting from it. Candle mouse, he can light things up. So right over here we can see that there's a flower. And so what's cool about that is as you go deeper into the level, you can activate these flowers. They stay lit, so you can actually see the path without the wolf. So we're just playing around with what you could do if you have different forms at different times. And that's basically that cloaked hallway area. And now we're going to show off the build. So let's see. Okay, cool. You see right over there, it's telling me to use WASD to move. I'm going to teleport over to this area. This is where you saw the demo, so I won't show that. Here we go. So you saw a picture of this. I'm using the wrong keys. We have our artist working on a cockatrice model right now. So currently he's a capsule, but here you go. There's the teeter-totter. He can also break stone with his beak. We're going to do that a lot better later. You can see I can stone these materials. They're all organic, except for the tree. He kind of just changes his leaves, but cool. Another area we worked on was this area. Our designer, he's having lots of fun with just decorating this place. This shows off our platforming code. We had quite a bit of struggle getting the player to move with the platform. And it's working quite nice now. We just need to polish a couple of the things. But you could see I move with it just fine. Before you had to run with the platform, so that was pretty bad. Over here you can see we have this eye pylon type thing. If I turn this on, it activates and will power that platform over there. So we have a bunch of these pieces we can play with and kind of organically build these puzzles. Over here it's quite dark. This is showing off that you can use the flowers to light the way. Currently it's hard to jump, so I kind of just take advantage of this guy to fling myself across. And then you can see there's another eye pylon that I can activate. Obviously I have to go all the way over there to get that one. So yeah, that's our build. And I'm having a hard time exiting. Cool.
Rain Rebellion?
Where's the click?
What?
Do we have a click?
I don't share it. Show one.
Nope. Oh, we already have it up. We still need to get the.
Built them. So just open a Google Drive. Open a new tab.
There we go.
Okay, so to start off, I'm Bart Driscoll. project owner of Random Rebellion, and the first thing we have is a PowerPoint to show off some of the art that we have done that's not implemented yet. So to first show off, we're now having particle effects made and implemented, or going to be implemented into the game for different abilities and attacks that certain classes have. So we have explosions, electricity, different effects that'll come off the character, some that'll come off of the weapons, like we have our staff that will shoot out fire after it's been after it's shot a fireball. We have a magical orb that shoots out of our mace. We have this kind of healing stream that will go from the staff to a other player when they're being healed by it. And then we have our ability icons that will show up on the class's UIs. So we have an enhanced shot and a proximity bomb. We have a rebuff and a life force, a backstab and a stealth, the magical ball, and the magic shield. And then here are our weapon models that some of them are animated, like this one. It's for kind of like a steampunk team, and the shield itself opens when the character shields with it to cover more of itself. Here's the magical mace, the magical shield, a Tinker's hammer that'll have a jet shooting out the back of it, steampunk's kind of sword. That's it for our art, and then on to the build.
Alright. So. Yeah. Sorry about this. Oh wow, this tiny screen.
Okay, so we have our
James.
splash screen implemented with our own art.
It
So to
says
show off the options.
yeah. It says sprint 4 because we got ahead of ourselves a little bit. So graphics. Oh, that's yeah. So right now it reads the resolutions that I can go up to. I'm not sure if I can actually go up to this, but the computer says it can. So, like if we go full screen, put that down a little bit, and apply, actually does that. Or at least tries to. And now it's in a weird window. It's gone great. Let's just keep it in windows so it doesn't break anything. Sorry about that. Alright, quit button works, but that's just gonna... so we click play. How's it looking over there? Good? Alright. Yeah, we'll just try and stress them. Yes, it's supposed to take this long. And yeah, I'm not sure why the lighting didn't load. I don't know. I mean, there's supposed to be lighting and it loads on every other computer except for this one. So spawn in, there's like fog, and then you see we got health bars, see that they work. We have little buttons, look, and then I'm not gonna make it go down to 0 because that's not what we wanted to do.
We have our abilities working, so when the character fires off their abilities, the icon will show them that it's cooling down when it's ready. We also have a thing on the middle of the UI to show that it's charging up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but for right now, you may have noticed that it. Oh. Well, first of all, we gotta deal with this boy.
And we still got networking working. It's working just fine. Characters able to fight each other. And we worked a lot on making the abilities of these two classes right now look pretty beautiful and
Yeah.
in a nice way. So that the fireball actually just looks like a stream of fire coming at you instead of some weird orb.
Yeah, and it fires from this weird spot right now because when you walk, the crossbow just kind of moves a lot, and we haven't set it up so if we actually made it to fire at the end of the crossbow, it'd be firing into the floor right now. So temporarily we have it so we can actually hit things. And the cooldown works on that.
Besides gameplay stuff, if you want to walk up to one of the buildings, we now have some textures done for our buildings. We have a plaster texture and a wood texture for most of our buildings, so those buildings are mostly, if not all done, and we'll start moving on to some of our bigger models. Speaking of our bigger models, you want to run up to the watchtower?
Yeah.
Done?
Textures look weird on this computer. There's another building. Stairs. Oh.
So yeah, we have one of our major set pieces done, the watchtower, that'll kind of hovers over the entire city. The players can go inside and fight inside.
Whoa.
For that collision.
Anyways, you can still go inside and look at it. There's some stairs. It's
And
really
there's multiple entrances and exits, so full-on fights can happen in here if they want to.
some stairs over here.
And that's mostly what we have in our build.
You can just go on this one. Yep. And then, right, yeah.
Equip button. Boop. Still works.
Yeah.
Hello everybody, my name is Donald Chevis. I'm the project lead for Calculord. Accidentally opened two of them. Okay, so we still don't have our splash screen. But on that note, we actually were able to bring on another member to the project to go ahead and start doing concept art for us. If I could type, that would be helpful. So we've got a new system for loading in to the actual application. Everything loads in a set procedure now, so that way whenever anything breaks when the player is loading in, it will kill the process there, and then it'll kick in a specific error code. And that's going to help us greatly when it comes to debugging, and especially once we start working with the teacher console and incorporating that in, we'll be able to see exactly where something's failing to load, which will help us identify where problems are. We're working on the basic character customization for the default character. So right now we're just focusing on one gender with a couple of skin and hair options. And so you can see the base of the mesh right here in the little preview for the avatar screen. And then when we go to quests, we've made some changes to the... That's interesting. We made some changes to the layout and the way the player is going to interact with the quiz screen. Except the UI is not loading for some reason. Yeah, interesting. So, I guess we're having problems with this computer too. But usually there's the questions that you've seen previously, but now it'll update. So the player has a health bar based on how many wrong questions or how many questions they've gotten wrong. And interesting. Anyway, so pretend, because it's broken on this computer, because this worked out down in the game devs. The enemy health bar also now is set to how many questions you need to answer to complete the quiz. This, when it's working, is a timer that fades to nothing. One of the big things we wanted to focus on as per client's instructions was making sure that anything that could be distracting and stressful to a student while they're doing a practice quiz comes off the screen rather quickly. So this will fade from being a timer that slowly loses all of its color, and you'll be able to go over and hover on it, and then it'll appear again. So that way it gets out of your way and you don't need to worry about seeing the constant clicking down of time. If I were able to answer the question that should be here, also now when you answer something incorrectly, a window will pop up and say, hey, on this question, this is the correct answer. So that way students aren't just getting the same thing wrong over and over again. They can actually figure things out. We've also got the basis for our settings. So now it's just a matter of going through and populating, once we actually have all our pieces in place, of the various quality levels and resolutions and what that actually means. But we've got the basis for that as well. One moment. Go ahead and restart that. Actually, thinking about it, I think I know what the problem is. I think the computer is not giving Calculor permission to pull anything from the server when it comes to questions, because it actually pings the server and requests a question, and then it drops it back to you. That way we're preventing anybody from being able to go in and look at the database and be able to cheat. So I think it's not letting us grab the questions, and that's why it's not showing up. But anyway, we've got the start of our logbook. Something that was very important to our client was making sure that there's a bunch of different ways to both reward the player and for them to track their progress. So now we've got we're working on setting up so that you can get achievements through Calculor internally instead of just using the Google Play or Apple, or Google Play or I forget what Apple calls their achievement system, but whatever that's called. We're doing that all internally, as well as being able to track stats for the players, and then whatever else we might want to handle. And also, if I could grab stuff from the server, I'd be able to show you that we actually have the ability to equip all of these items onto the character. But again, in an attempt to keep people from being able to modify the database in the game and cheat and get a whole bunch of stuff, it calls from the server, which isn't working on this computer. That's about it for what we have for Calculor. We're pretty much just focusing on prettying up these systems, and then also we're going to have a mini game that's about 75% of the way done. And hopefully next time I'll be able to figure out how to let us actually access the server on the build here. But that's it for Calculor.
Hello, I'm Kyle Tomet, and project lead for Foodmeister. What we added this build was a navigation drawer slide out menu. So kind of, when you click the thing, it slides out the menu and you can navigate between different. It currently looks different on both because we're kind of locking down a design, and because it's a little different of how they work and how they're coded, that they may not end up being totally similar, but we're gonna try and get it as similar as possible. And a splash screen was added to both, so just kind of like a couple, 3 seconds, just allow us to preload some stuff from the server. Just kind of give the user something to look at while it's loading that stuff. And also, remember me, so, between uses of the app, it'll just remember who is logged in, and that way it doesn't have to, make them re-log in and stuff like that. And also, you can log out, so. And improvements, I went and learned the auto layout engine on iOS, so that way, no matter what device you're using, it'll it'll fit into the screen. I don't know if you can see that picture on the bottom. It's showing that no matter what size the screen is, it'll show every element. And I also changed the web scripts to return JSON so the app knows what happened and is able to act accordingly. So if it failed, it is able to know what was the failure, and so let's watch the demo. Small little just kind of activity indicators to show that it's loading something. So here's the new UI. It's kind of the same as before. I just wanted to. This is just showing off the remember functionality. But I have to actually log in first or create an account. I'm just killing the application and showing that when you reload it, it automatically just loads you back in. And it's just showing the Google served places on iOS that I got working last week. Just your location and stuff like that. And here is, yeah, there's the navigation drawer on iOS. So, yeah, it's just kind of shows the logo, shows who's logged in, your settings, and then the logout functionality, which kicks you back to the main screen. And let's just go back through that. Here's on Android. And it's animated on Android because iOS works really weird with GIFs, so I have to find a way to animate a GIF on iOS instead of, because Android you dropped it in, it worked just fine, but iOS is kind of picky about animating GIFs. So there's this new choose your date of birth, gender. Results. So yeah, this is kind of the same. Okay, so next sprint, profiles. It's the last major piece we have to add. It's basically just allowing them to add a new profile. That way that, you know, it can filter different results based upon who they want. So like if I wanted to filter, or maybe, you know, Tony wanted to filter instead, or whatever. Or if we both, you know, we're both going out to the same restaurant, we can find one that fits both of our needs. And we're going to do a big testing phase in this sprint because there's a lot of inefficient code right now, and there's a couple big crashes that we have to fix. Like if you try and go back to something that you've gone to, especially on Android, because you can click the back button and sometimes it reruns scripts and it crashes the program. So we have to figure out how to stop that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this build, or yeah, this sprint. So.
All right, Dean Goldsmith, project lead for Island Survivor. For this week, for the design team, we've been focusing on the stat system as well as the abilities. So having numbers and formulas that go with applying the numbers to the weapons, to the armor, and the trinkets, and what they add to the player's character, and how that affects combat, it was being worked on, as well as some of the online guys working on the map and the layout for where the resources are going to be, how the mobs on the map are going to roam. So there's going to be rabbits, boars, bears, and stuff like that, and they have spawn points and patrol points and camp places. Back for the stats, this is a basic, the basic stats for all of the characters on the top left. By class, the breakdown of what their base stats are going to be. Not affected by the equipment that they have, but we do have the equipment stats to be added to them. And then on the right side of this one is the abilities that we have for the weapons. We're still working on the armor and trinkets. to get those figured out completely with stats to go with them. And that's basically it for the design team. The art team has been doing a lot of work for the characters. We have 2 more models for the player to choose from instead of the base UE4 mannequin, the hunter and the crafter, as well as some more weapons and shield models. We still need to get those textured and then into the build, but the meshes themselves are complete, but the characters have been added to the build. And then for the programming, we have the build itself, but because of some source control snafus, the only thing we've really been able to implement is the addition of the 2 class meshes. So everything else is still the same. So the crafter, this model shows up, and the hunter, we have this one, and like last sprint review, we still have the warrior. And the major difference between the warrior and the hunter is how jacked he is. And then, yeah, when you load into the game, everything else pretty much stays the same, except that we have the plate, the nameplate, the player's stats are located here. So he has the health, his stamina, and then the body heat bar, that's a slidable. And that is it for the build. Thank you.
All right, some excellent progress happening. Just everybody, give yourselves a round of applause for another great milestone. Now, going forward, sprint planning today. This is your last major sprint until that final milestone, and then you're going to head right into the green light celebration event. So think polish, think completing what you already have. There shouldn't be any really big items that you're going to create and integrate at this point. Everything should be polished and integrated and make sure everything's functioning. Do that, shoot for week 12 rather than 13. Make sure you've got 1 executable that you're bringing in for that last one. We shouldn't see any PPTs, no double builds, just 1 build with everything in it highly polished. All right, thank you online for being here and joining in. We all give you a round of applause as well for your contribution. All right, we'll see you next time.